All right, did I lose you guys? Can you hear me? All right. 000. What are we gonna do with this? I know there are people just here. Sorry about that. I was getting reverb on my mic. Can anyone? Hmm. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Says we're live. We don't have anyone here. Hmm. I lost that person. Still nobody. I'm gonna sit here at 5:02. So far, not a soul. Probably because they didn't watch the end of that video. Hmm. What is going to happen here? Well, we'll give it a minute till someone shows up. We had someone a second ago. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Yes, I see. Nobody here. Wonderful. All right. Hey there. We got somebody. How's it going? My name's Justin. Did you see the invite earlier today to be a part of the live stream? Probably not. Seeing as you just left, it's probably not the person we were looking for. Okay, we got another. Wonder if how many. How's it going? Is anyone else going to show up for today's little lesson or whatever it is that we're doing? Our group effort talking about reality mapping. Oh, a bad marker. There we go. Reality mapping. All right, 6 people. Hey, how's it going, everyone? See, it's backwards. I have to learn how to write backwards. Would you eat a hamburger for $100 million? Well, if you mean a hamburger that you'd buy just at McDonald's or something, why not? Sure, that'd be great. Oh yeah. Hey, how many people do we have here that had seen my other videos and got the invite today to be a part of this group event? Is anyone? Can you throw me up a comment? And also, can I get a sound check, please? Can people tell me if they can hear me? How's it going, everyone? Mason Clay, etc. This is great. So, I just say hi. I think it's all backwards. Is it backwards? Man, that sucks. How do we change that? The sound is great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Might not be able to do any writing because I'm not like Leonardo da Vinci. I'm not very good at writing backwards, but we can do it. We can. I'll maybe draw pictures instead. That way you can kind of get a sense of what we're going to do. So, very first thing is we're here, open source project, to talk about mapping out reality. Why? So that we have the ability to have a better effect in reality and that we can navigate this world that we're in better. So, that all being said, the purpose is so that we can be able to have better lives, where you have more financial stability and be able to do the things that you want, so that you'll be able to understand reality better and your purpose in this life, who you are, why you exist, that you're actually somebody who lives on forever, be able to have a good social life and be able to have all the friends that you want and the abundance that you want. Now, I'm somebody who has had a lot of successes. I've already retired once in life. I was someone who was able to take 2 years off and just read a bunch of books and kind of have my own leisure. It was a good time, but then you know what? You get bored of that. And then you want to get back out there and start doing something again. And that's what I did. And I started up another business and I was crazy. I sold all my old business, started all over, and ended up in Tennessee where now I'm running my own contracting company. So a part of the big game again. I'm gonna have more fun reality. But how that relates to you is that you guys, you probably would like to be able to have that life you want to be able to travel or whatever and be able to go out and have a good time, you know, ball out, meet beautiful women if you're a guy, meet amazing men, whatever. So I'm droning on, but that can all be done when you actually understand reality. When you're someone who is an affect, not affected. Okay. Maybe I'm getting a little clear here. If anyone that's making sense to them, right? So let's start off with the very beginning. How do you actually effectively do anything in life? How do you actually accomplish a thing? Well, I'm going to start us off by saying is well, you have to know how things work. In order to know how things work, you have to understand truth, right? If I take this marker, I understand if I drop it, it's going to fall because of gravity, cause and effect. There's things that are rules in this game we live in. So, if you live in a reality where you make your focus or your attention on things that are not in alignment with truth, then what's going to happen is you're going to lose because you're working against the rules of the game. Okay. So, the very first thing is when you set out to play in this reality we live in, you must conform to how reality works. You must set truth as your guiding principle or your North Star, where you make all your decisions based off of. Okay. With that North Star being your guiding principle, your selective focus, this thing in your brain called your reticular activation system, will then show you what is true. It will show you what is real. If you try to set your intention on something else, some people say you should set your intention on what is good or what is wholesome, right? If your intention is set on what is good, all you will see is what is good. And that sounds great, but guess what? There are people who are like that. Usually it's someone you know who's kind of like a grandma who picks up a phone for a telemarketer and they tell him, ma'am, someone has hacked your bank account and all this stuff and sent you too much money. So now I need you to send that money back to me in order to straighten it all out. And guess what? That old lady, a lot of times, they will send that money back to that person thinking everything's good, everything's fine, everyone has good intentions. You become a sucker. Now, on the flip side, if you become someone who's only focused on what is negative or what is bad, guess what? You're only going to see negative opportunities. You're only going to see the bad things in reality. You're only going to see what's wrong with everything. You'll think there's no chance, there's no opportunity. But instead, you want the middle ground. You don't want all positive or all negative. You want something in between, right? Or you want to see everything. That being said, you know, truth is the guiding principle. The other thing is too is a lot of people fall for what are called ideologies. Ideologies are very slippery slopes. You can be many different ideologies. You could be a political affiliation. You could be I'm a conservative. I'm a liberal. I am a fill in the blank. You could be anything. I am a technologist or I'm a Luddite. You name it. The problem with ideologies is where they may be helpful in that they give you a handrail to hold on to. It's somebody who already did all of the thinking for you. You read a book by someone who espouses an ideology, you're going to follow all of their systems to a T. And the thing is not all ideologies are equal. Some ideologies actually have pitfalls, they have problems, and they're not always adjusted for the time or the environment you're in. And when you follow one of these, they may lead you somewhere good until they don't. And they make you kind of blind. They turn off your brain. And ideology is an excuse to not think, right? It's this thing that you follow so that you can just have a leader and you can just blindly trust in a system. But when you follow truth, right? No one person is ever always true about or truthful about the thing. So therefore, you have to shift your selective focus so that you always are picking up on the right path to navigate through in reality, right? Okay. So, reticular activation system. Has anyone ever heard of what that is? Can anyone pop in the comments anything they know about that part of your brain? It's a process. It's something that's very powerful. Okay. I don't see any comments. Let me get a drink real fast. And then if anyone has a comment to make, just say yes or no if you know. Okay. Well, I don't have any answers, so I'm just going to let you guys know. Okay. There's this thing, right? Your reticular activation system. What is that? Okay. This is how it works. Your brain takes in a lot of information through your eyes, your ears, your nose, the way you feel, all of your senses. And it's a lot of data. It's billions of bits per second, right? Um, it's not billions, it's millions. Different scientists have different ideas on how much it is, but the idea is, let's say there's 2 million bits of information coming in through your senses at all times. Well, your brain and your conscious mind, the part in the front that you hear when you think, if you can hear when you think, can only process about 400 bits per second on a good day. So, that being said, there is a lot of things going on around you. There's a lot of things that are happening that you cannot always be aware of. And here's a good example. So, right now, you're probably on your phone and you're sitting. Did you notice the feeling of the chair underneath of you as you were sitting? Or were you so focused on me, you didn't notice in that moment until I said something, right? Another thing is maybe you might notice that there are lights on in the room that you're in, but you didn't notice that before, or vice versa. There might have been lights off. And now that I bring it up, you notice it again. Okay. Your brain can't capture all these things all at once. So, what it does is it listens to your internal identity, who you are, and then just draw like a little picture of you, whoever you are. Yeah, I guess it's a man, that could be a woman, right? You have a self image. So, that self image of you, right, sets what your awareness goes on to. So, if you identify as an American, let's say that I'm American. Are you going to pay as much attention to other cultures and countries around the world, or is your focus going to be mostly as an American about America, right? You probably don't care about the politics of Pakistan. I mean, unless you're from Pakistan or something like that. So, your identity sets your awareness or what you're selectively focused on. And why is that important, right? If your focus is on the wrong things, like negative, positive, or whatever, or it could be anything, um, you'll miss the opportunity in front of you in the moment that is the most relevant to what your situation needs. Okay. So if you identify with only negative things, and you are negative, or you're like, I'm poor, I'm a victim, I am a bad person, da 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 da, then guess what's going to happen? That's the things you're going to set your focus on and see. Now, if I'm a positive person, I'm a good person, I am a person who is, you know, always happy, all these things, right? Then that's what your focus is going to get set on is positive things, right? And when your focus is set on those positive things, you will always see those. And that's better than being someone identified with being a victim and negative. But you're setting yourself up for pitfalls and booby traps. You're going to be someone who gets suckered. You're going to assume everyone else is like you or is like that. And then you're going to end up getting scammed, have people take advantage of you, stealing from you, lying from you. We all know that the people who assume the best in people are the ones who end up getting lied to and believe it, all this stuff. So you need to be identified with truth. I am not a negative victim. I'm not an overly positive, happy person, but I am a truthful person. I am a truth seeker. I am a, you could say, rational person, maybe something like that. You can kind of parse that out as how you want to. And when you set your identity with that focus, guess what? Your reticular activation system will see truth. It will see what is that is the correct thing to do. So, with that all being said, what we're doing is reality mapping. We're trying to understand the world better so that we can lead better lives, take care of people, have better families, social groups, environments, and a place we live in. We need to start with how are we going to map this reality? We're not going to map it as just all good and we're not going to map it as just all negative. We're going to map it as what is true, right? We're going to be disciplined, almost kind of scientific about it. Now, let's not identify with being a scientist because that kind of has some connotations to it, some subliminal ideas of, that a scientist might not always be the best choice, but just be a truth seeker. So that's what I propose to you guys as we do this reality mapping, if that makes any sense. Is everyone following along with this so far? Can I get thumbs up in the chat or can I get someone to at least give a little feedback for a second? If what I'm saying makes sense while I get another drink. Okay. I've got 5 of you in the group, but thanks for being here, everyone that is here. I appreciate it. And I know I have met a lot of very smart people through this YouTube channel. And I know I need to be humble with who I talk to because some of you are not rookies. You guys, you know what you're doing. So I appreciate the feedback that I do get. And if you're learning or so, I'm happy to share. So yes, it makes sense from wisdom is better than God. I think I've seen you before in some of my comments. Good to see you here. Okay, so let's say our North Star or our number one thing in reality is truth, right? And as we get closer to the truth, we become more effective and become more perceptive of our reality around us because we can only perceive so many things. We'll be more accurate and we'll zone in on what's perfect or what's best. Right? Perfect is an abstraction, it's not real. Okay, so we got a little bit more time here. We're going to be here for about 30 minutes total talking about this, and then I got to go and make some pizza in a pizza oven for dinner. But what is it we're going to map out with our intentions of truth and reality? What is reality? What is anything? What are we? Who are we? Where are we? Da, 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 right? Okay. So you can start with, let's say, Descartes, Rene Descartes. Okay. How do you know that you exist? Well, Mr. Descartes, he had some ideas as to how it is that he existed. If anyone has any knowledge of this, they can pop it into the chat at any time. But this was a Renaissance guy. He was a philosopher for at the time. And he had some ideas about what is identity? Who am I? And they were learning about biology at the time, and they were learning about the mind, that the brain is where the thoughts come from, etc. And he had this idea. He said, well, I live in reality, but what if all of reality is just a big play or a big stage, almost like the Truman Show? And I am a person who's amongst a bunch of actors, and I'm not in on it. They are not telling me, but everyone here is pretending, and I think I'm part of a real world, and I'm not. And so maybe this is all fake. I'm kind of overgeneralizing this, but then he worked it down and he's like, how can I trust my five senses? How do I know that when I'm going around that what I feel is real? How do I know that what I see is real? Well, and he said, I don't. I can't know that I see or feel or taste or touch is real. It could just all be an illusion. It could be a mirage, like when you're in the desert. It could be what he said was a demon at the time who was feeding him all of these senses and giving him a false reality. This goes back to Gnosticism with the demiurge and all this other stuff, the monad, da 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 da. A lot of the Renaissance, that period was really affected by the Gnostic ideas. But his thing is, he said, you know what? You know how I know I am real? He said, I think and therefore I am. Because at the end of the day, I can hear my own thoughts and dialogue with myself. Therefore, I know I exist. I can't know if other people exist because I can't hear their thoughts. They can't hear mine, whatever. So this leads into what's called like solipsism, which I don't really agree with. And it also is, not something I totally agree with in Descartes, but Descartes gives us a good jumping point, a good stepping stone into this thought of what is reality. Okay. Who are we? What are we? Why are we here? And a lot of what's going on can be reduced down to what you are mostly is your mind. Okay. They say perception is reality. They say that everything around us is just what we perceive. In a sense, that is true. You know what? For the people who get overly focused on positive or negative, right? They perceive or they only look at the good, they only look at the bad, right? And for the most part, they very much insulate themselves by being in those worlds. But that doesn't mean that that is the only thing that happens to them. Negative things can still happen to them. Even bad, negative people, they catch lucky breaks every now and then. It's not all 100% perception is reality, but it is a large percent of who you are. Now, our mind, if you go to the Hermetica, they have this principle of mentalism, that all is mind. All right. Now, if you really back out like 10,000 foot, really, this is like gazillion foot perspective. If we think about what is the universe, some people say that this is all God's mind. Because, okay, and I'm going to try and parse this out just a little bit for some of you. Some people, they get very turned off by the idea of God. Maybe you have a very atheistic position, or you're a deist, or you're an agnostic. That's fine. You still have to acknowledge that there is a beginning point of the universe, right? And that beginning point that we're going to talk about, the Big Bang, creation, Genesis, whatever, right? That moment, okay? You have to look at cause and effect. Okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But if this is all a designed universe, the design has to come from a mind. So it existed in a mind before it existed anywhere else. And some argue that this reality we are in is only a mind that we exist in, God's mind. Okay. Um, Now, if you also, let's say you take more of the agnostic or atheistic position, okay. Um, okay, hold on a second. Common sense will tell you what is the difference between reality and mumbo jumbo. Okay, gotcha. Wisdom is better than gold. I see where you're coming from. So you're pretty much saying that this is getting overly complicated. Is that what you're more or less trying to say? That if we just see with our own two eyes, hear with our own two ears, we can just see what it is and what isn't, and then just figure out what reality is. I think that's what you're trying to say. Okay. Well, If that's the case, okay, can you or can you not be deceived as a person? Common sense. And also, what's common sense to one person may not be common sense to another person. Okay. Different cultures have very different perspectives on what is common sense. Um, let's say in the West, common sense, you wake up, you work hard, you get to own your own little piece of freedom, and you get to have your American dream, right? Common sense, maybe you could call it that. If you go over into the East, they say that if you are a diligent hard worker and you're somebody who is a good contributor, then your reward is your status amongst the community, right? And to assume that you get to own something here in the West would not be common sense for someone in the East. In the East, they have this idea that you are entitled to the action of a thing, but not the fruit of the action. Okay. And that's deeply ingrained in their mindset. So to say what is common sense and what is not common sense may work for a while, but you're slipping back into that ideology frame set or frame of mind where you might not over time succeed with just that. And common sense is not well defined. Whose common sense, right? Your common sense, my common sense, what should be common sense. It's such a, I'm sorry, it's a very vague term. Okay. But anyway, jumping back to mentalism, right? Or this idea that everything is mind. We were then talking about the atheists and deists. They would say that everything is not God's mind, right? They would say that no, we're the product of the Big Bang. The Big Bang started at one point from a big explosion, and then this chain of events led us here gazillions of years of evolution and the universe cooling down and heating up. Da, 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 da. So when that happened, it's not a mind, it's physical material interacting with each other. All right. Now, what I would put forth is a couple things. One, if you believe in only the physical manifest reality, right? And not the idea that the spirit world is somewhat of a mental reality, then what begins to happen is you would say that we are all 100% deterministic. Everything is already said and done because of cause and effect. Everything is calculable down to the smallest particle's movement interacting with another particle's movement. And when that happens, you would be able, if you had a big enough processor, big enough computer with enough energy, be able to predict the entirety of the universe, right? And then you would realize that it is all one cohesive thing. That time doesn't exist, that reality is not this fluid thing, but it's really just a motion of one thing. Okay. And you kind of come to the same conclusion that all is one and one is whole and it's all a map, right? It's all a map. And therefore, it is all in and of itself an image or a mind. Okay. Does that make sense? Are people following? I'm telling you guys, I don't know how many people you're going to hear this stuff from. This stuff is some pretty serious information I'm dropping on you. If you are uninitiated, if you do not know what the main dialogue has been for the last 2,000 years, you guys are. It'd be hard to keep up with this too. So I'm trying to baby step it. Okay. These ideas have been discussed across millennium by the major figures, and there has been a progression of ideas that have, over time, the articulation has improved, and the best ones always go back and revisit the old masters, take in all of their info, and then they end up expanding on it, just their little micro percent, so that they can end up, you know, improving. Natural law is. What about natural law? Common sense will tell you what is the difference between reality and mumbo jumbo. Natural law. Okay. I believe that's an enlightenment term. Or natural law, you're talking about how law populates or percolates through reality based off of game theory dynamics. Is that what you're trying to bring up when you say natural law? That was a monk, wasn't it? Like in France or something, who came up with that term, natural law. I don't know. Let's look it up. You don't have to pretend like you know everything all the time. You can just Google things. Natural law. Natural law. All right. Natural law is a philosophical and legal theory proposing that universal moral and ethical principles are inherent in human nature and can be discovered through human reason. It's possible that higher objective laws exist independently and govern man-made laws, serving as moral compass for human society. And cause and effect is a part of natural law. Yeah, I don't know if that's okay. I think you're conflating. Um, natural fall natural law would be a result, right? And you okay, so I do like where you're going with that. Wisdom is better than gold as far as natural law. But I would like to try and parse out some things. I'm happy to be wrong on this, but look, okay, cause and effect, right? It's different rules that interact with each other to the point where then meta systems build off of each other. Because then you have like one thing bumping into another thing causes to bump into two things, da, 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 da. And then from that you get more complex systems, and those more complex systems generate, like generalized systems that have more than just one cause and effect that pops out of them, but then like a bifurcated potential reactions to something. So then you end up with animals have morals. Yes, natural law. Animals, they have a sense of right and wrong, but I would argue that lesser evolved animals have lesser morals, if that makes sense. Now you'll notice something like an insect may have less morals than, let's say, a dolphin, right? That's not to say that dolphins are perfect or something like that, but those environments when animals become pack animals and they end up working in groups, they have to learn how to negotiate with each other, which then turns into what look like morals, right? Now you can say humans are not any different, or maybe you could say that humans are have a little more complex of systems where we integrate with each other and have to have things like honor, honesty, charity, goodwill, all those things. But in the end, they're like meta survival systems. Okay. So that's not to say that natural law, common sense are the only things that you need. Because here's the thing, are we going to stay like humans how we are right now forever? Are we always going to be humans who exist in this kind of industrial technology world? Or are we going to go into the space age? Are we going to go into the metaverse or virtual reality and live in those places? And is our software or whatever going to be able to keep up with those? Or are we going to have new common sense, new things that are appear to be common sense? And our old software might get outdated. If you took a caveman from, I don't know, Paleolithic era or whatever, let's go back 10,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, whatever, and you brought him into modern society, do you think that his common sense, natural law would be able to fit in right away? What if you gave a caveman king access to nuclear weapons, right? Would that caveman king, if he went back in his time and took nuclear weapons with him, would he think, I cannot use these nuclear weapons on my caveman tribe enemies because then I may end up endangering the whole planet and my own species? Or would that caveman human just nuke the shit out of that other set of caveman because he just, I want this, therefore I do that? Like, common sense is not always so clear. I'm not trying to pick on you. Um, Wisdom is better than gold. I'm just trying to showcase some things, and that, someone fun to talk to. I like that you bring those things up. It shows that you are at least aware of more than an average, bear or whatever. So, um, but moving on, we can go back to the main topic of the mentalism thing, or we can, oh, this is what we'll do. We'll talk about levels of consciousness, right? This is a good segue because you have the whole mentalism thing, everything is mind, right? And that the reality that we live in can only be as good as the level of consciousness that we're at. Okay. And going back to the caveman thing and all that, we have to develop our levels of consciousness. What was his name? The ADQL consciousness charts. I always forget his name. What's the guy? But there's 9 levels of human consciousness, and most humans are in about a level 5 consciousness out of 9. Some of the West is in a 6, the rest of the world is about in a level 4. And each one has the very key traits where they act certain ways based off of their perception of reality. And it's not bad to be in lower levels. It's just you're only capable of doing so many things. And it's not that a human is in um, like very few are in level 9, but someone who can access a level 9 is not always in a level 9. They often will be at points in the day where they have to be at a level 1, right, or a level 2 or level 3. You can't just ignore those lower levels because the level ones is basically your consciousness is fixated on almost like a baby, your immediate needs, your immediate wants, your immediate desires. Like you could be Albert Einstein, but if Albert Einstein had to take a poop, all he'd be thinking about is how he has to go take a poop. Like it's a part of the foundational stuff. So, but your conscious levels can increase, and you can be or up 80 QL consciousness levels. What is this? Is it Brown? What's his name? Map of consciousness. AQAL. Not David Hawkins. What's this guy's name? Does anyone know who I'm talking about? It's been a while since I've looked into this guy, but very good read. The guy, he really gives um, a good lens to look at the world through. I appreciate him a lot. So I got about 5 more minutes, and then I got to wrap for today, and we'll see how this goes. But other than that, is there any other questions? And thank you. Wisdom is better than gold for giving your thoughts, opinions. They were good. I did appreciate them. They're very um, good little things. You helped me to understand when I'm talking where I need to shift the conversation to or focus it on, kind of what we need to cover. It's good because I don't want to get too high up too fast. And also, I don't want to get sloppy when I'm talking. So that stuff helps. But other than that, I'm about to go and make some stone fire pizza in my pizza oven and gonna have a nice dinner because tomorrow I got to go get back to work. We're going to be doing some stuff in construction. We're going to be doing siding on a house. So I got to do my part and help people out. But other than that, I think in summary, we talked about reality mapping. The number one thing we should set our intention or our ideas on, because if our mind is our biggest thing that's going to sort out reality, is truth. And its truth is better than just focusing on good or just focusing on bad, because at the end of the day, good and bad exist, right? And you can't ignore either one. It'd be dumb. Um, but with that all being said, let's call them negative and positive. Good and bad has too much connotation. Just it is what it is. You need the push, you need the pull, you need the up, you need the down, you need the light, you need the dark. You can't live without either one. They're necessary. And maybe next week, what do we talk about? Because we're talking about reality mapping and truth is our number one thing. Well, we now have our North Star. So now we need to start putting a boundary around everything as far as, what is up, what is down, what is left, what is right. And we need to figure out what our limits are. When you start drawing a map, you need your boundary. That's like one of the first steps. And then after you do a boundary, you do um, terrain features. So, like if you have a mountain, that's a really good thing to start measuring off of. If you have a river that's running through, then a river is a really good um, place or a checkpoint to measure your reality off of your map. So, we're going to pick out some of the bigger things that stand out. Like, what is this universe we exist in? What are the parameters of it? Maybe we'll literally start with trying to figure out what is this physical space that we're in? How big is the universe? Right? That'll set perspective and time. We'll do that. Time in the universe. Time, size of universe. Okay. Well, hey guys, I appreciate it. And other than that, I'm going to get out of here and I hope you'll have a good day. But thanks for showing up. You guys have a good week. We'll maybe do this again next week. I like doing this at 5 o'clock, but I'll have a video on Saturday or Sunday that I'll post. It'll be, more food for thought on stuff and maybe help with the topic. Other than that, thanks. Have a good one. Bye.